I know, right? I'm like a London bus. You don't see me for ages and then I come along twice in quick succession. Anyway, we are out and about as always, having a little walk with Mr. Koa. And I suddenly realized that obviously after my last video, sorry, we just bumped into one of Koa's doggy friends. Anyway, as I was saying, after the last video, I suddenly realized obviously I'm doing a lot of research and a lot of investigation as to, you know, what I was saying about my wants, my wish list, my negotiables, my non-negotiables, what I 100% want, what I might compromise on. Now we're in the shade. Yeah, what I might compromise on and what I won't compromise on. So I figured I'll try and make, no promises, some relatively short, with me waffling on, videos just on what I found out and what direction it's led me in. And so I thought I'd start with fridges because it's an area that it could be a compromise for me. And obviously there's basically two types, isn't there? There's the 12-volt compressor and then the three-way fridges as well, which they call, I believe, absorption fridges, which I didn't know until I started doing this research. So I'm going to share what I found out, and that is from looking on forums, on social media, on manufacturers' websites, and watching YouTube videos. Just to summarize which way I think I'm going to go and what way is potentially the better way to go, but bearing in mind, disclaimer, I'm no expert. This is just my own rambling thoughts as to what I think is going to be best, and maybe it will help other newbies. I appreciate there's a lot of experience out there, but help other newbies that are going down the same path and trying to decide which way to go. So I'm going to walk to a little secret spot that I like to go to. It's a beautiful location. Sit down and tell you what I found out. Okay, here we are. This is a lovely location. We're overlooking the bay of San Antonio from, like I said, a little secret spot that I found a while ago. Me and Koa come here quite often because we're on the East Coast. We can watch the sunrise. Anyway, fridges. Let's start with the three-way fridge, the absorption fridges. I mean, like the name suggests, it's a three-way fridge, which means it works on gas, 12-volt and 240-volt. Some would say maybe it's only a two-way fridge because the 12-volt capabilities are not necessarily always the best. In the Doctor, my little camper van, the 12-volt actually worked really well. Obviously the engine needs to be running. I think in the Doctor it was called a cool drive setting. But basically once the fridge is cold, when you're driving along with the 12-volt switched on, it will try, I'm not saying it always will, but it will try and maintain the temperature, or at least try and keep the fridge as cold as possible. And like I say, in the Doctor it worked really well. But if you take that 12-volt functionality out of the equation, you're basically left with gas and 240-volt, aren't you? Or plug-in, you know, mains hook up depending on which country you are in and what voltage and ratings and all that kind of stuff, which is a whole nother conversation which I need to get my head around. But I mean, there's a few factors with the three-way fridges that I have since found out I didn't know before. One of them being that the van, the motorhome, whatever it is, needs to be parked pretty much flat, or as flat as can be. I mean, I can't say that when I was in the Doctor I was always parked flat. It always worked, so I didn't really understand why, but now I do. And that's because when you're using it on gas, obviously there is a burner element in the fridge. Excuse my technical terms, they could be wrong, but hopefully you'll understand. There is a burner element which obviously has a flame. Now obviously if your vehicle is parked level, that flame is going up. But of course, as soon as you start to put the van on any kind of slight incline, then that flame is still going to burn upright, but of course it's potentially going to move in relation to the way the van is sitting, and then isn't necessarily going to be burning in the optimum location to keep the fridge as cold as it could do. That said, when I was using my freeway fridge in the Doctor on gas, one, it lasted for a long time. It was really efficient and it worked really well. It really kept the fridge cold. And then of course plugging it in onto a mains hookup, I mean, it is what it is. It works fantastically well. And I think really that's where the freeway fridge wins, is the gas element to it. It's much better, I think, if you're off-grid, you don't want to plug in, you know, you're in the wilds somewhere. The fact that they can run really well, efficiently, and keep the fridge and the contents cold is a major plus point for the freeway fridges. And I think the type of vans that I'm looking at and the age of the vans that I'm going to be looking at, they're no doubt going to come with a freeway fridge, unless of course it's been upgraded to a 12-volt compressor fridge. I say upgraded, it's not necessarily an upgrade, it depends on everyone's needs, but unless it's been changed to a compressor fridge because the previous owner wanted it for whatever their particular reasons would be. But in general, the freeway fridge, I mean, it's been fitted in vans and motorhomes for, I don't know, since probably the 50s, 60s, 70s, when motorhomes existed, I guess. And most motorhomes still come with them, although there is obviously a change to 12-volt compressors. But I think for run-of-the-mill, day-to-day use, a freeway fridge is super good, but they do struggle, I'm led to believe. And again, in the Doctor, I didn't have a problem, but I was traveling, you know, September through to January, so we weren't in super hot temperatures. But the freeway fridges, they do say struggle in warmer climates. So again, that's probably a big factor to consider in terms of where you're traveling and when you're traveling, what time of year. Because if you're going somewhere really hot, the research I've done would suggest that a freeway fridge can struggle to keep itself and the contents cold when you are in higher temperatures. Like I say, I didn't have that issue, but just passing on what I have read, found out in the various places that I've been thus far. Okay, so let's move on to the 12-volt compressor fridges. What have I found out about them? Well, you can also get them where not only do they run on 12-volt, but obviously you can still plug them into the mains. So if you want still a two-way fridge. But now of course we're talking about running off 12-volt on a permanent basis, not just when the engine is running and when we're driving. So firstly, obviously you need to have a system in your van, your motorhome, that can support that. So, you know, good batteries, good solar setup, and obviously when you haven't got solar, the batteries are there to hold the capacity to be able to still run the fridge. Again, research says that they are very efficient, low power consumption, and actually get the fridge and its contents colder quicker than a freeway fridge. They tend to take that little bit longer. Because you're not obviously using gas, they can be used on an incline. The van doesn't have to be, you know, completely level. I mean, I think most of us would want our vans as level as possible, just for comfort of living, moving, sleeping, you know, doors opening and closing, not opening and, you know, smashing against something. But they can work on an incline. And of course, if you've got the right setup, yes, you've got to invest in it to start with from a solar perspective, but once you've got it, you can basically use your fridge for free because you're operating on the sunlight and the resources, the energy saved in your batteries. Of course, with a freeway fridge, when you're running on gas, you've still got that cost of paying for the gas and exchanging the bottles or filling up your refillable LPG tank. You know, and again, there's that argument as well, you know, how much is the solar install going to be versus the cost of replenishing the gas as and when you need to. And I mean, that's completely individual to everybody's needs. But, you know, you do have with a 12 volt, the efficiency, the extra rapid cooling, and the fact that once you've invested in the fridge and the solar system, it's free. But it's not free, is it? Because you've had to invest. Something else, of course, to consider. I mean, it's not a biggie for me, but depends how you sleep, maybe. But of course, a compressor fridge has a compressor. So there is going to be a noise related to that. I've never actually heard, besides at home, of course, but in a van or a motorhome, a compressor fridge operational. But certainly with a freeway fridge, they're completely silent. There is no noise to them at all. So I don't think that's a big consideration personally, but just again a point that I found and obviously I've noted. Excuse if there's any noise in the background, there's a boat going by, quite a nice one actually. In terms of costs of the fridges, I mean, like I've already said, I mean, your van, your motorhome is already going to come with a fridge. So when I buy my next van, whatever fridge it comes with, I will be using until potentially it breaks or, you know, for whatever reason it needs to be replaced. So I think in, probably 95+% of the cases, you're going to be getting a freeway fridge. But the cost of buying them new. Now, I was always led to believe that 12 volt compressor fridges are more than a freeway fridge. And I'm not disputing that, but I'll put a couple of screen grabs that I got from a retailer online. You'll actually see that the prices actually favor the 12 volt fridge rather than the freeway fridge. So, you know, having heard what I'd heard, I was surprised when I saw that. So let's wrap it up. I wanted to try and keep this fairly short. I think the most flexibility is always going to come from a freeway fridge. You have the ongoing costs of the exchange for gas, and when you're plugged in, obviously paying potentially for the electric. With a 12 volt fridge, and you need to be as flat as possible officially. A 12 volt fridge, once you've got the installation, you could pretty much say you could run it for free from the sun. It gets cold quicker, it works better in high temperatures as well. I don't know if I said that, but the 12 volt compressor, it's one of its main plus points versus the freeway, is that in warm climates it will still Koa's choking on a stick or something behind me. It will still get cold and keep the contents cold, which, as I said, the freeway can struggle. So there it is. You're going to buy a van or a motorhome, you're going to get a fridge. I mean, I would suggest that you use it. I'm going to use what I get, and then in the future, when that time comes, if you want to change it, then of course you've got those considerations to make. But anyway, that's my 2 penneth worth on fridges, 12 volt compressor versus freeway. Might help someone, hope so. We're going to continue our walk. I will see you soon.